Well, hello and a very warm welcome to Season 2, Episode 4 of BA Fringe, which is very kindly sponsored by IIBA, the International Institute for Business Analysis. Can you believe it's the penultimate episode of this season? Which means that next month we have our season finale. Do keep your ears tuned for that, because we've got a special after party that we're arranging after the BA Fringe next month that will only be available if you register early and actually get a place in the Zoom room. So very warm welcome wherever you are joining from. I know we have people joining from all around the world. The chat is enabled. If you registered early enough to get a spot in the Zoom room, the chat is enabled. So use the opportunity to network. You might want to start by saying where in the world you are and, exchange LinkedIn details and stay in touch. We have an absolutely jam-packed agenda for you this evening. We're going to be hearing about doing business in a digital world with Mark Smalley. Eno Eka is going to be talking about personal branding for business analysts. Dr. Cecily Macdougall is going to be talking about the strategy execution gap and what that means for us as business analysts. And our good friend Fabricio Laguna is going to be talking about the difference between a method and a methodology and a tool and a process. All of these things are really, really interesting, really, really relevant for us as BAs. Now, as you know, I'm sure you've seen other episodes, but this is really live, so anything could happen. Do look out for the occasional technical glitch. We like to think that's part of the unique charm. But it also means that you can have a shout out read out live on air. All you need to do is type something in the chat and just make it clear that it's a shout out. And the best way of doing that is like using the word shout out, putting a hashtag next to it in the chat. And we will do our best to read out as many shout outs as we can during the sort of intervals between segments. You might have a colleague that you want to say thank you to. Maybe there's a biggest piece of learning that you want to share. Do share it in the chat and we will read it out. Also, please do be active on social media. Use the hashtag BAFringe on LinkedIn or Twitter to get the message out there. It's always great to share the learning. Sharing is caring, as they say. But that moves us on to our very first topic. I met this speaker at a conference, this next speaker at a conference. We were trying to work it out yesterday, probably 5 or 6 years ago. And it's one of those people that, when I heard him speak, speaks with real gravitas, really, really, it encapsulates a whole range of really interesting topics. So Mark Smalley is a speaker and author of many blogs, books. He was lead author of part of the ITIL4, one of the ITIL4 modules, and author of High Velocity IT, Business in a Changing Digital World, which is easier read than said, I should say. So Mark, good to see you, and apologies for just flummoxing over your book's name there. I feel I should ask you to say the book's name because I just read it out so badly there.
Oh no, well, no, don't bother about that. No, I'm just glad I didn't ask you to use the title, the job title I sometimes use, the IT paradigmologist.
Well, I remember because when I met you at the conference, that's one of the reasons I remember you, because I thought it was such an interesting title.
Yeah, well, it's sort of catchy thing for marketing, purely for marketing purposes to attract a bit of attention.
Yeah.
But it does reflect my interest in the sense that, paradigms is sort of like spectacles, isn't it? A way of looking at the world.
Yeah.
So you just mentioned the other speakers talking about method and methodology, the study of methods, the study of paradigms, paradigmology.
Yeah.
I'm constantly fascinated by different takes on this weird world that we're all passionate about.
Yeah, absolutely, and we could probably get into the sort of the Greek you know, the sort of origins of these words, but that would probably be a conversation for another day. But great.
Yeah, let's spare the audience that.
So Mark, you were the lead author, as I mentioned, of one of the new ITIL 4 modules entitled High Velocity IT. So what exactly is High Velocity IT, and who is it intended to help?
Yeah, it's in fact the title, it's pretty catchy title. Quite like the title, High Velocity IT, but it sells the content a bit short because it's really about high performance across the board, not only velocity, but also the resilience of operational IT systems, the value of them in the first place. And I think that's something that certainly should concern BAs. You know, are you building the right stuff? Are you either automating the right business processes, or are you building the right kind of digital products and services? So are you making valuable investments in the first place? And you could say high velocity. Is high velocity good, and is therefore slow velocity bad? So we get into a sacred and evil false dichotomy. Certainly not the case. But it's intended for organizations that are more digitally enabled, more digitally driven than others, such that they do things significantly differently, or even do significantly different things, because technology enables them to do that. And although most of our audience, I guess, know ITIL, if they know ITIL, know it as the guidance for the IT service management community. But one of the things I'm proud about, as far as the book's concerned, is the diversity of the authors. I wrote about half of it, but I engaged 22 other people.
Wow!
And I consulted. Yeah, it was a nightmare at times. I was like the service bus, the orchestrator, to try to orchestrate various authors who I'd asked to write specific bits, and they represented 18 countries in total. I spoke with 50 people.
Wow.
Anyway, only about a third, slightly more than a third of the authors were from the core IT service management domain. About a third were from either Agile or DevOps, and slightly less than a third from outside IT completely. So it's a pretty broad spectrum. And for instance, just to illustrate it, some of you may know the book The Toyota Way.
Yes.
Jeffrey
Liker. Yep.
That's right, Jeff Liker. Jeff Liker wrote a delightful piece about Toyota Kata for the book. Now, Jeff's field is management in the manufacturing world. You know, nothing to do with IT. Yet the lessons that he's learned over the years are just as relevant for us.
Yeah, that's really interesting, Mark, and that sort of segues neatly into my next question, which is around digital. Because, you know, we're hearing more and more, or certainly in the BA world, we're hearing more and more about, you know, a digital channel shift, and I suppose we could say a digital paradigm. And on the one hand, that sort of makes sense because, you know, there are new channels, but the devil's advocate might say, well, actually, things have been digital in one sense. You know, I mean, you know, there have been elements of digital there for a very, very long time. So what's really changed? So, I mean, what has changed in terms of this idea of things being digital?
Well, it's let's see, what's it? I think it's William Gibson. He said that the future's already here. It's not just evenly distributed.
Right.
You know, so it does depend where you are. Some organizations are more into it than others, and some of them need to be more into it than others. It very much depends. But when you're in the more digitally enabled or digitally driven organization, you tend to see phenomena like, you know, we've talked for decades about business and IT alignment, where you try to align what the IT department, often a centralized IT service center, trying to align their efforts with the various lines of business, which is quite difficult. And I think we're moving increasingly into what I call business and IT convergence.
Yes.
Where you see the two, and certainly in multidisciplinary product-oriented teams, often with a sort of a Scrum idea behind it. You've got a product owner and a development team. a scrum master who tries to facilitate the process. So you're seeing those kind of changes. People adopting different ways of working, like based on agile.
Yeah, yeah, and that's definitely something I know probably many of the sort of people tuned in will be seeing, is a sort of a move from perhaps a project to a product management life cycle, for, and the pros and cons of that, and also the idea of there being continuous adaptation, continuous sort of changing, and I suppose in that context we hear a lot about product ownership. But I know you've spoken before about usership, and I wondered if you could explain what that is and what that relates to.
Yeah, a crucial element. I'm not quite sure whether I coined the term myself. Well, I did coin it, but maybe other people have done it as well. But it's the concept of co-creation between service provider, service consumer. We often, certainly in IT, we tend to say we deliver value as if we chuck it over the wall to the users. And sometimes we do. But the true sense of service is the application of each party's resources, like knowledge, experience, for the benefit of each other. And that means that you're dancing the tango. Dancing it takes two to tango, and it's often an intricate and intimate dance between the two. And I think it's really sobering when you consider how poorly some users benefit from the systems that a lot of effort has gone into.
Yeah.
Ask yourself the question, do people actually know which functionality is in the system? Do they use it? Do they use it effectively? Do they understand the meaning of the data? Do they interpret the data correctly and use that data to take better decisions? Because information is about reducing uncertainty. That's a function of information. And once they've taken better decisions, does somebody actually act on those decisions? Because if nobody at the end of the chain, and this is this whole usership chain, if nobody at the end of the chain acts on a decision that's been improved by information that they got out of that information system, what was the point?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'm trying to, and the key thing is who feels responsible for that area. I think that's something we should be thinking about.
That's really interesting, and that whole idea of sort of service and getting into the idea of service design and really understanding, as you say, that sort of value co-creation, understanding value from the perspective of different stakeholders who may be users or may be people who are interfacing with the users, if it's, say, a call center system or whatever. So quite a complex set of considerations there.
Yeah, we could get into the topic of customer and user experience, which is a fascinating one, and the role of empathy in that. But what I'd like to do is just point out a phrase that people could Google: service dominant logic. Google service dominant logic as opposed to goods dominant logic, the sort of manufacturing world. You'll discover something called service science, which is worth a look.
Yeah, no, definitely. And this converges really well with topics that another person who will be well known to folks at BA Fringe, Deborah Paul, Dr. Deborah Paul, I should say, who is has written books on business analysis and is very much talking about the convergence of business analysis and service science. So it's amazing how we're hearing different perspectives on the same topics, which is really, really interesting. So Mark, what would you say? What would you say would be your biggest takeaway for BAs who are tuning in now to take away from this session?
Just from my personal experience, the thing that affected my career, which is now in its 42nd year, I think.
Wow.
It was 2013 in Denmark. Somebody introduced me to the Kinefin framework.
Yes, Dave Snowden and Mary Boone. And
yeah, that's right. Good. Excellent. Yeah. And in fact, I got Dave to write a piece for the High Velocity IT book, not on complexity, but on ethics, which I think is another topic that people should be thinking about, the ethical implications of our work, because technology is becoming increasingly important.
Yes, yeah.
So you have to think about the unintended consequences. But the takeaway is take a look at Kinefin.
Yeah.
I expect you'll include a link in the notes and stuff like that.
Yeah,
It'll promise you, it'll give you a headache.
I remember when I discovered it, it was yeah, you know, it really does. But as you say, in that sense making space, so very, very useful.
Yeah,
it makes me want to definitely go and read the book now. I know that these perspectives are in there. So
it messes with your head. And just a couple of quick things for the listeners, audience, is to look at on YouTube. There are 2 short videos. One is called Cynefin Framework,
yeah,
and the other called How to Organize a Children's Party.
yes, I've seen that one. I've seen that. That's a particularly that's one of Dave Snowden's, I think, isn't it? Which is
correct. Yeah, both is, and it illustrates how the weird approaches we take at work, which wouldn't work outside work.
Definitely.
And it's very amusing as well.
Fantastic. So, Mark, I'm sure people will want to know more about you. They'll want to connect with you. We will put your LinkedIn address in the chat so people can reach out. But how else can people find out about you and find out about what you do?
Yeah, I'm fairly active on LinkedIn and on Twitter. Have a look at the articles on LinkedIn. My website, smalley.it, contains a writing site where you've got lots of my drivel, but more significantly, there's a learning section where I've collated lots of the stuff, including Cynefin, for instance, and other stuff that I've learned a lot from. So you could take a look at that. You mentioned, by the way, in my introduction, you forgot to mention one of my recent claims to fame.
Oh, yes. Yeah. The voucher code.
Yeah, that's right. I've had a voucher code named after me.
Yes.
Our mutual friends at Good E-Learning, who do online courses, both Adrian and I have blogged for them before. And I did a webinar for them last week, and they gave the audience a discount code Smalley20, which you can use as well, which will get you a 20% discount on their courses. So that's something good to know.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And what I'll do is anyone who's registered will get a link, a reminder of that code as well. So fantastic. Well, Mark, thank you so much. We could literally talk for hours about this, and I'm sure, but thank you so much for taking the time out to have a chat today, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Yeah, great pleasure. Thanks, Adrian, and thanks, Matt, behind the scenes.
Yes, Matt.
Magic Matt.
Magic Matt. Yeah, that's a very, very apt name. Thanks, Mark.
Bye now. Bye-bye.
Bye. Fantastic. Well, there was so much content there, a lot to think about. I love the way that Mark really drew the parallels between what we do, the ITIL stuff, the Cynefin stuff, and it's converging with that idea of service, which we've heard others on the show talk about as well. So that's very much the epitome of the idea behind BA Fringe, is to get these different perspectives together and find out that actually we're not so different. These disciplines are starting to find common ground, and I believe we have a shout out ready. This is always slightly terrifying because I can't see any of the monitors. So something I believe is going to come up on the screen now. So our shout out is, please can you give a big shout out to Brenda Duffy to congratulate her for her article in the latest BA Digest, and thank you to Adrian for such a bumper edition and brilliant content. Well, yes, I would absolutely echo that. Brenda's article, which was about whether as BAs we are Machiavelli, I said it right, Machiavelli or Machiavellian or chameleon, and we'll tell you how you can get your hands on a copy of BA Digest a little bit later in the show, but it's 50+ pages of contributions, and in fact we'll tell you about how you can, if you've got an article idea, how you can discuss it with us as well. So do keep those shout outs coming. Remember, all you need to do is put them in the chat and use the hashtag shout out so that Matt can spot them and bring them up on the screen for me. So we will move straight on to our next topic. Have you ever wondered what personal branding is and why you should care about it as a BA? Maybe it's something we should think about more. Well, I'm really pleased to say we have Eno Eka, who is a BA coach and consultant and founder of Business Analysis School, who's agreed to give us a bit of a crash course in this whole idea. So Eno, over to you.
Hi, my name is Eno Eka. I am a business analysis coach and consultant. I'm going to be speaking to you today about personal branding for BAs. Now, this topic is very, very special to me, and I'm so happy to speak about this topic because I've been able to build a personal brand for myself as a business analyst. You see, I used to be an accountant before I transitioned into business analysis, which has definitely changed my life. And I've been able to create a personal brand around my story and my journey. Now, I've been known for being a coach and a mentor to professionals around the world who want to make a transition to business analysis and don't know how to do it. I've created a personal brand around supporting the business analysis community. I've created a personal brand around being a champion for business analysis certifications because these were helpful for me in my transition journey. Now, what do you want to be known for? Now, that's my question to you. When people call your name, what do you think? What do you want people to think about you or say about you? Now, that's your personal brand. There's so many ways that you can build your personal brand as a business analyst. Now, we're going to be talking about that very soon, but I really want you to ponder about what I said. When your name comes up in rooms, what do people say about you, online and offline? Now, let's talk about building your personal brand offline. Building your personal brand offline, it can come in different forms. But one way you can do that is through mentoring and coaching BAs in your organization and in your industry. Another way is by championing new causes, by sharing your knowledge to BAs in your company and outside your company. I was able to build a personal brand around my business analysis journey in my company and my industry by championing business analysis certifications in my company and in my industry. Showing BAs around me why it was important to get IIBA certified and, standing out as that business analyst who took a step towards getting her certifications, right? So that's a way you can also build a brand. And then of course, leading and championing this cause, showing and teaching them how it should be done. So that's a way you can definitely build your personal brand in your company. You can also build your personal brand by being someone who's very customer centric and loves to help the customers and is always finding new ways, new and innovative ways to help build, our customer relationship and customer satisfaction, right? And just being obsessed about, serving your customers and driving business goals and delivering value is definitely a way to stand out in your community, in the business analyst community, in your company and your industry. A great way to stand out in the business analysis industry as well is by writing for business analysis blogs, business analysis magazines, applying to speak at events as well. Being involved with the IIBA as a volunteer is a great way to build a personal brand for yourself. Now let's talk about online. Now the online space is so huge. Have you ever wondered, what comes out when people search for you? What do the search results show? Who are you seen as? Are you seen as a BA who just works at a company? Or are you seen as a BA who is passionate about something and is known for something? Now, there's so many ways we can build our personal brands, and that starts with being able to tell a story, being known for something, having a voice behind your brand. Now, a lot of BAs do amazing work with the things that we do, the projects we're involved in, our roles, but we never take our time to actually showcase this to the world. Now, a fantastic platform to do this is the LinkedIn platform. Now, you want to make sure you have a great LinkedIn profile, well curated to actually showcase your skills, experience, your accomplishments, and what you stand for. You have a great summary page that talks about your characteristics and the things that make you unique. You can also create a brand on LinkedIn by creating posts, creating articles, sharing videos. That's a great way to build your personal brand. Also engaging with the business activity on LinkedIn as well, following thought leaders, following business analysis pages, joining business analysis groups, and contributing to the conversation. A great way to do that as well is through hashtags. So following the business analysis hashtags and IIBA hashtags and other relevant hashtags in your industry, in the BA community, and generally other areas that interest you. So that's a fantastic way to start communicating with people who use those hashtags as well and be known and seen for something. Another way to also, curate your personal brand is by creating a podcast, talking about the things that you love, things you're passionate about that could actually help other people who want to become business analysts or are in your field. Creating a YouTube channel where you can actually record videos of yourself and upload to YouTube to share your knowledge and build a brand. Writing blog posts as well, creating your own blog on WordPress or using Medium to write blog posts and share your knowledge and share the amazing things that you're doing. These are ways that you can build a personal brand and really share all the things that you do. We as BAs need to take it upon ourselves to stand out, in the BA community. It is a growing field. There's a high demand for business analysis skills across so many organizations. A lot of people are trying to make that transition into business analysis. And we owe it to ourselves as existing BAs in this field to create a lot of content and create a personal brand that makes the business analyst field more attractive and shows the way for other BAs coming, into the field as well. So these are ways that you can leverage personal branding to stand out. And this opens up so many opportunities for you. I can't say how many opportunities I have gotten because I had a personal brand online. I'm known for something. And because of that, people reach out to me for so many engagements, volunteer and paid engagements. And that's also a way that, people get to know about you. But also helping people along the way. Mentoring and coaching is something that I'm very passionate about. And even just through your content, people can actually learn and that can transform their lives. I get a lot of messages from people who say reading my content and following my content and my journey has helped them some way in their careers. So I would like to urge you today to definitely consider building a personal brand for yourself as a business analyst. Thank you.
Fantastic. Well, food for thought indeed there about personal branding. I love that opening analogy of a transition from an accountant to a BA. It got me thinking about the similarities between the two roles that there might be there. But that idea about thinking about how people think about us and what our online or sort of offline persona is. And, you start to wonder, well, what is my personal brand? And how might I need to change it? And I love that idea about standing out and writing, blogging, or getting involved in the BA community, telling a story and standing out. So with that in mind, that's a really good segue for me to mention that BA Fringe is very much designed to be a platform for anyone to tell a story, really. And I would love it if you have a particular topic that you're enthusiastic about. I would absolutely love to have you on BA Fringe. It doesn't matter if you're not a professional speaker, whatever that means. It doesn't matter how long you've been in the job. What's really more important is that you've got something that you want to say, something that's interesting, a story that can be condensed into the sort of short segments that you see on BA Fringe. If you have an idea, even if you think it's a curveball or you're not sure, what I'd encourage you to do is submit it. So we've set up a form that you can get to by going to the web address, which is over2.link /speak@fringe. That's all lowercase, over2.link /speak@fringe. And then we'll be in touch. And there's no obligation, of course. You don't have to, like, if you submit, you don't have to then do it. But if you've got an idea, why not put it forward? And then maybe in the next series of Fringe, you might be appearing live, broadcast live to the masses, so to speak. So if you have any questions, of course, feel free to reach out to me, but do put your ideas in on that form. But we have such a jam-packed agenda, we must move on to our next section. So I'm really excited to be talking about our next topic. Have you ever wondered about strategy, execution, and how this relates to your role as a business analyst? Or perhaps you've seen IIBA's strategy to execution framework and you've wondered how this might relate to your role, your organisation, or to business analysis more generally. Well, I'm really pleased to say that we have Dr. Cecily Macdougall, who is founder and managing director of Building for Business and is also the author of IIBA's strategy to execution framework, who's here joining us this evening to answer some of those questions. So Cecily, thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you very much, Adrian. I'm delighted to join you.
Yeah, and such an interesting topic, because strategy is one of those topics that gets bandied about. We talk about it a lot. You know, it seems like you pick up every sort of edition of Harvard Business Review, and there's something about that strategy execution gap. So what would you say that strategy execution gap is? When and why does it occur?
Oh, it's a really good question, Adrian. I guess when I was younger, I used to think those people doing strategy, they were off, off in the clouds, and I'm sure you can relate to that. But as you do more and more, it becomes more relevant to actually have that understanding. And if I look at where it actually fits, the organisation goes ahead and creates its own strategy. You've created your own strategy for the BA Fringe, and then you go into, typically you start to develop a series of projects or programs, and then you'll choose one of those, and then you'll go into implementation, and then after implementation you'll go into execution. So that space between going from strategy into implementation, and typically we're in a hurry, we want to do that really quickly. And so what happens is we tend to jump from strategy to business case, or strategy to implementation, or strategy to procurement, and we miss a lot of the planning that goes around when you actually take an initiative and you actually do that planning around it. It's a bit like creating a house. It creates the foundations for that house, and if the foundations are right, then building the house is quite quick and easy. But getting the foundations right is absolutely key. And so that's what the strategy execution framework is all about. I looked at many of the methodologies on the markets, and they were typically, the industry available ones were typically focused around delivery, around implementation. What I found when I was doing my doctorate in this space was everything, the key things were around people, and especially, especially strategic alignment. People want to get into it. They want to get moving, get things going. There's greater complexities in what we're doing these days. So if you think about making a change here, it has a holistic effect. And so this change here affects that over there, or that change there may affect that over there. And so I can't remember that game, you know, when you pat that thing on the head and one goes down and the other one comes up over here, a bit like Tetris.
Yeah.
So relationships. So what I found, one of the keys in that gap was around leadership and sponsorship. There was a very big difference between sponsorship and governance. Stakeholders, stakeholder management, stakeholder leadership, team competency, relationships and communication. So all of those things, and a sort of a melding between IT change and project program management, and business analysis, sort of strategic business analysis encompasses all of that.
Yeah, it's interesting as you were speaking there, I was almost thinking, oh, this is really interesting, because part of the glue to use a metaphor, part of the glue is the strategic business analysis, and that's really interesting, and I really resonate what you were saying, almost with that kind of whack-a-mole or whatever type of game. I'm starting to think about that holistic and systemic thinking, and definitely what you were saying there about organizations wanting to rushing to procurement is something I see so often. It's let's just go out and buy something, but and you have to ask them, well, hang on a minute, how does that align with what we're trying to achieve here? So this in a way relates to, or may relate to, another topic that I know in the BA world we hear a lot about, which is organizational agility. And I suppose the current world we find ourselves in has shown the importance of being able to adapt and the ability to make changes very, very quickly. To what extent would you say strategy and execution play a part in that ability for an organization to actually learn and change direction?
Great question, Adrian. I think, and I come back to, if I like the term sponsorship, I would have to put the term adaptive leadership around that. And that's one of the real keys around around moving quickly from strategy to execution. And I've actually worked I've had quite a few agile programs. Agile itself tends to focus on implementation. I've had agile developers actually work alongside me, and because I've stayed from doing all of the strategy to execution, all of the 9 steps in the guiding framework, and the user journeys. What I found is my agile developers have actually started to do those before they actually start doing their own development, and that has been fantastic. In terms of acceleration of change and agile organisations, what I've found is using these guiding strategies and frameworks, it accelerates change by about, I've had several instances where I've been able to accelerate 3-year programs into 12 months.
Wow.
And that's huge. Right. So when you look at this, if you look at the strategy execution framework and people go, oh, if I've got to do this and this and this, oh, that's going to take too long. Well, it actually reduces the overall time. It puts the effort into that planning up front, and that planning provides the solid foundations, and that then gives you the accelerated change.
Yeah, I love that analogy as well of a foundation, because it is interesting, isn't it? Because in most situations, you wouldn't build a building without the foundations, or if you did, or if you did, you'd be in trouble. And the foundation element is sort of interesting, isn't it? Because I'm no architect, but I would imagine that if you're building foundations, you sort of need to know whether you're building a skyscraper or a garage. So actually, that planning, that understanding, is so very, very important. So, what would you say? And we've sort of touched on this, but I know that some BAs find themselves very much in a delivery space, and that's valuable, and we definitely add value in that space. But what role would you say that strategic business analysis has in an organization?
So if I look at where things fit, if I sort of look at strategy planning and analysis is typically done first in an organization. And that strategy analysis is basically, what business am I in? What's the environment? What's my competitive strategy? And so an analyst, business analyst, can add value working with strategy to do all of those things. Then you've got your initiatives, your strategic initiatives, and that's where strategic business analysis really comes to the fore, where you take basically the strategy and you actually define it. You're doing that translate from strategy to implementation, and being able to do that translate, basically going from strategy world into tactical so that it can go into operational world, is really, really vital. And then you've got your, you sort of, where pardon me, where business analysts have often been involved in doing, unfortunately get called in to do the requirements in implementation.
Yeah.
And at that stage, you're sort of doing it a little bit blind, because there are lots of things that you actually find out when you're doing strategic business analysis that actually affect what you're doing down here in implementation.
Yeah, 100%. One of the things I've often observed is that if there hasn't been any strategic business analysis done, then actually it's virtually impossible to prioritize anything, because everything's just a wish list. I mean, if there's no direction, it's sort of like, I know this is a cliche, it's been said so many times, but it's the sort of Alice in Wonderland Cheshire Cat, well, if you don't know where you're going, then any path will take you there type of thing. So that's really, really interesting. And as you said earlier, that there's sometimes that perception that it's going to slow you down. But actually, if we, it's sort of like, well, it might take time to plan a route before you get into a car, but you're much more likely to get to the destination. And yes, you might not follow that route because you might find there's a tree on the a strategic blockage. But it's always better to have a map than not have a map, I guess.
I agree. Yeah. But map is a really good analogy. So if you get in a car and you just follow the directions that you're given. I don't know about you, but sometimes I've ended up in some pretty weird places.
Well, yeah. And it's kind of, but that is sort of somehow sometimes how it feels, perhaps when we've worked with some organisations. It's like, well, they're just following the road signs, like, Birmingham, that sounds like a good place, let's go there. Oh, hang on a minute, now there's Chelmsford, so let's follow that, and kind of, and whereas actually having some underlying coherence, I suppose it's about that coherence down from the organizational strategy down to what like IIBA's BA bot would call the change strategy. So the strategy driving an individual change at that level. So Cecily, we could talk about this for hours. I'm absolutely certain that we could, but what would your biggest takeaway be? So if someone's tuned into this, maybe they're currently in the sort of delivery space, they're not getting as much strategic involvement as they would like. What tool, technique, takeaway would you particularly recommend that they take a look at?
Ooh. I'd have to say, Adrian, and I come back and I have to give the strategy to execution framework for my IBA a plug. And my recommendation to anyone is, and I have been in this situation myself where, and I come back to, can we get this done? We've got to start seeing results. We've got to start seeing it. Start doing some of these things in your own time and do them in parallel to a program that's in flight, so that you become familiar with the tools and the framework and how things could work, and reach out to other people, reach out to me, reach out to you. And then people start to see things and they go, oh, that's great. Yeah. And with that transparency, then they start to, well, can you do more of that? Can you do some more of that? Can you do that for this project over here? And so it starts to snowball.
Yeah, I've often said, it's interesting you say that, because I've often said that sometimes the best way to do strategy is by stealth, or strategic business analysis, because once people see the value of it, then they won't even question it. They will always want it, because and I mean your example of a 3-year program in 1 year, I mean, who wouldn't want that, really? And what we'll do for those of you that are attending live, if you look in the chat around about now, there will be a link to the strategy to execution framework that Cecily mentioned there. If you're watching on catch up on YouTube, if you look down in the comments or in the note, the description below, we'll put a link in there as well. So Cecily, thank you very much for taking the time out to talk to us today. I'm certain people will want to follow you, know more about what you do, get in touch with you. How's the best way for people to connect with you?
Send me an email, Adrian. Come on to LinkedIn, send me an email. It's all there. Love to hear from you. Love to help you. And yeah, whatever I can do to help, that'd be awesome. If I can also give another little plug.
Yeah.
For those of you who are really, really interested in this, I guess, the social psychology part of change, I wrote a book when we were in lockdown last year for our COVID. I wrote authored another book with my daughter called The Essence of Poppy, and it's about building mental strength and resiliency. And that is another part when you're doing change, a lot of change. You need to be able to work your way through all of those things that sort of come your way. So that's another one that you might reach out for.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
I guess fundamentally everything, especially the strategy execution framework, everything that I've done is based on no rework. Because I don't know about you, Adrian, but I don't like doing rework.
No, not at all.
And that's one of, if you get it right first time, one of the great accelerants of change.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, Cecily, thank you so much for taking time, and hope to speak to you again soon.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Adrian. Cheers.
Thanks. Well, fantastic. And again, I don't know about you, but I took so much away from that conversation with Cecily. That whole idea about foundations, actually taking time to really build the firm foundations is time well spent, and maybe that's a question we should ask sometimes: is would we build a building this way? Interesting thought about having those strategic ideas underpinning them. And of course, do get your hands on that strategy to execution framework. So head on over to the URL that was mentioned, that Cecily mentioned, and will be appearing on your screen shortly, which is iiba.org/strategic business analysis, I believe. So you can get it there whilst it's hot, as they say. So. Just another really opportunity to thank IIBA for sponsoring the show. This is one of those productions that can only really work with sponsorship. So we really do appreciate IIBA sponsoring the show and of course sharing information like that with us so that we can get it out to you sooner. In the scheme of getting information out there, I wanted to briefly mention BA Digest. Now, some of you are clearly, from the comments, already aware of BA Digest. If you're not, it is a quarterly PDF magazine. We've very recently launched the quarter 2 edition for 2021, and it's got sort of 50 odd pages of information, articles and so forth in there. Do take a look at it. We'll bring a sort of version of it up on screen for you to give you a bit of a preview. And as someone mentioned in the shout out, there's an excellent article from Brenda Duffy in there, but there are many other articles in there as well. We'll put the address from which you can download it on screen very shortly, but there's no sign up required. You can just download it, or you can view it online in this sort of clickable flick through format. And also it would be great if you would perhaps like to submit an article idea. We are absolutely open to those to article ideas as well. So if you'd like to get your hands on a copy, just head on over to the URL that you will see on your screen right now, which is over2.link/digest. That's over2.link/digest. And there's a link there where you can sign up to be on the mailing list if you're not already on it. That way you would of course get the edition straight to your mailbox. But that moves us neatly on to our next segment. Have you ever wondered what a methodology actually is? It's a term we use a lot, isn't it, in change and in business analysis, and how it differs from a method or a process or a tool or a technique. Well, very, very well-known business analyst, often known as the Brazilian business analyst, our good friend Fabricio Laguna is here to explain. So Fabricio, over to you.
Hello everyone, I am Fabricio Laguna, also known as the Brazilian BA, and today I come here to ask you the question, what is a methodology? I have been working with that for the last 20 years, but I still ask myself about that. I have been helping some really great companies to redefine or adjust their methodologies of doing some kind of work. If we look for the origin of the word method, method comes from Greek. It means the path to find out an end. So the method is how do you reach the outcome you're looking for. If we think about methodology, so we are talking about the study of methods. But usually when an organization says they have a methodology, they don't say they are studying methods uniquely. They say they are applying different methods that they have studied and applied to their own situation, for their own context. In my experience, good methodologies emerge from practice. Organizations are trying to enhance the way they're doing the repeatable work in their organization, and they create their own methodology for do that. And you can create methodologies for do almost anything. Let's say, for an example, that I want to put this picture in the wall. So put a picture in the wall is a common job, and you may have a methodology to do that. And what's a methodology format of? I think a methodology must have at least 5 components. First one is the processes. What's the processes to fix this picture in the wall? Well, the process would be a set of steps or a set of tasks that must be done. At first, I would decide where to put this picture and mark it on the wall in the right place. Then I should study the viability of fixing it in the wall, and are there pipes on the wall that may be damaged if I make a hole there? So I have to study my blueprints and see what's there inside of the wall. Then I, based on what I have studied, I will decide what type of way I will fix that picture in the wall. Should I use a screw? Should I use a nail? Maybe some glue or double-sided tape. There are different types of ways of fixing something in the wall. Let's say that I choose this one, so I have to make the hole and put it there. So there's a set of steps until I find the outcome I'm expecting for. In the same way there is in the business analyst job, we also have a process for that. Well, I would say we start by defining business requirements. Then we study different options to reach those business requirements. Like we do a viability study and see what's probably the best option. And then we have to specify the solution requirements and so on and so on and so on, right? There is a process for every methodology. Process is the first component. The second component would be roles and responsibilities. In my case, for putting the picture on the wall, my wife would probably define the place where the picture is. My oldest son is studying engineering, so I would ask him to analyze the viability and see where the pipes goes. And I would probably be the one who would fix the nail. In a business analysis methodology, we will probably have the sponsor defining their business requirements. We would have someone studying the financial aspects of these initiatives. We will have a product owner defining the solution requirements, a tech lead defining what should be delivered in which way, and UX specialist, a developer, tester. We have a lot of roles and responsibilities in those kind of methodologies. The third component of a methodology would be deliverables, products and deliverables. Let's say that the definition of the place in the wall is some deliverable. The viability studies would create some kind of documentation or some kind of assessment report from my son saying that's fine. I should probably fulfill some tools request if I'm borrowing or if I'm renting the tools I need for the job, and so on and so on. It depends on the kind of organization I am. If the risks are too high, I will probably have more formal deliverables than in an organization with very low risk. In my house, for example, those deliverables would be very simple. But if I'm trying to make a hole in a wall in a nuclear power plant, I would probably have too much more bureaucracy to do that because the risk is very higher. So we have different organizations with different levels of formality on those deliverables. The fourth element of a methodology would be the tools. So this is a tool, this is a tool, the pencil is also a tool. My son would probably use some AutoCAD to look at the blueprints and understand what's going on. We also have some tools as business analysts. We may use our project and program management tool. We can use Jira, we can use Trello to control Kanbans, a wiki page, some enterprise architecture picturing tool, or the most used tools for almost all business analysts are the Microsoft Office, Word, and Excel tools. All those tools are available. In our cases, more often software. And the fifth and last component of a methodology, I would say, are the techniques. If I want to put a nail in the wall and I don't want to hurt my finger, I must be able to do that, and I must control the right technique for that. There are different techniques for each task that must be done during processes. So like for us, if we think about business analysts, you must do an interview, you must lead a workshop, you probably do some financial analysis and try to understand what's the payback of an initiative or the internal rate return, stuff like that. You may use user stories to define your specification. You may use use case depending on your project. You may use ATDD to define the acceptance user criteria for your user stories, and there's a lot of techniques available to be used in your methodology. What's the best one? That's something that you have to think in your context for your organization. What I recommend you is that you look around you and see all the available frameworks and good practices that are available in the market and adapt those for your organization. So the methodology will be specific for your context and for your needs.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Fabricio, for a really engaging and thoughtful exploration of methodology. And I love that idea of methodology being a set of methods, the fact that it's got that whole idea of process, of roles and responsibilities, products, deliverables, tools, techniques. And it shows that we ought to sort of examine some of the fundamentals and really make sure that we're adapting to the context. If you think about agility as being all about adapting to the context, well, we need to have our own business analysis agility within the projects, products and contexts in which we work. So that almost brings us to the very, very end of the show, but there is just one thing, well, there are a few things I want to let you know about. The first is an event that's coming up this summer. 15th of July, keep it clear in your diary. So there is going to be a half-day event called Serendipity. And Serendipity is on the 15th of July. It's going to be a half day. It'll be sort of UK time, will be from 3 till 8 p.m. But if you're in a different time zone, it'll obviously be different. And we've got the agenda out now. So you can actually go ahead and register. Now, the really cool thing about this is it is completely free. So, you know, where else are you going to get half a day's worth of professional development? Where else are you going to get to network with other people from around the world other than at Serendipity? So you can see we've even got some light boxes, because the branding is emerging as light boxes for Serendipity. So please do register, you know, get your place and tell your colleagues. The idea behind Serendipity was to create those serendipitous moments where you get the opportunity to meet people who you might not otherwise have met. So it isn't just going to be conference sessions. There are going to be sessions that are deliberately designed to enable you to bump into people, to chat to people that you perhaps wouldn't have otherwise met. Because I don't know about you, but I find at real world conferences, sometimes the most valuable thing, like, you know, you'll be having a coffee or whatever, and you'll be like, oh, you know what, actually this conversation's so good, I'm going to skip the next session and we'll just continue with this conversation. So there's going to be the usual sort of mayhem, conference mayhem. So add it to your diary, and very, very much hope that you can attend, and do tell your colleagues. It, as I say, completely free. And if you're a BA manager, I would really appreciate it if you would sort of create the environment, the permission where people can maybe take that couple of hours off on that afternoon to attend, because the more the merrier. And hopefully you'll get it, you know, get the investment back in spades in what you and other people hear from the conference. The next BA Fringe will be the season 2 finale, and there's then going to be at least a 2-month break, largely because, as you can imagine, preparing for Serendipity is going to take quite some time. I'm working with my good friend and colleague Vince Mirabelli over in Canada on that. So do make sure you make May's edition, which will be on the 11th of May. It's at 6:30 UK time. It will officially run until 7:30, except it won't. It will actually run till 7:45, because there's going to be an after party after the broadcast finishes, which is going to be some additional mayhem, which isn't going to be recorded. So, you know, you've got to come along now, and you've got to be live to find out what that mayhem is, because it, you know, it's probably piqued your interest, I'm sure. So do register now to get your place. If you're watching this on YouTube, it probably means you didn't get in the Zoom room in time. You know, register early so you don't miss out on a place in the Zoom room. If you're not sure whether you can make it, feel free to register anyway. There is a cancel button, so if you're not sure whether you can make it, register, get your ticket, and then you can always cancel if you can't make it later on. So all that's left for me to do is to say a massive thank you to everyone involved in today's show. Massive thank you to IIBA for sponsoring. Massive thank you to all of our speakers who have taken the time out to share their knowledge with the community. Virtual round of applause for all of them. Of course, to Mark, to Eno, to Fabricio, and of course to Cecily. A massive thank you to Matt, as has been mentioned already. Matt makes all of the technology work, and I can tell you, sometimes I think it's a bit of a miracle that the technology does work. There are so many bits of equipment, and you know, even when there is a little minor technical issue, you probably as a viewer don't even notice it, and that's because of Matt's hard work. So a massive thank you to Matt. And of course, finally, last but by no means least, a massive thank you to all of you for tuning in live, for supporting the BA Fringe, for sharing it with your network, for your shout outs, and also for watching it on catch up. So stay safe, remember to register for the season finale, and see you next time. Take care, bye for now.